I'm Sherilyn Skolnicki, and this is Brilliant Balance, the show for working women who are ready to shine. Each week, I bring you ideas, inspiration, and insight on balance, business, and getting it all done gracefully. You ready? Let's be brilliant. This is episode 249 of the Brilliant Balance podcast, and today I'm talking about walking. I'm going to do something a little bit different in this episode. I am recording these. As I record these, it is summer, and this episode is going to air at the very beginning of August. And what I know about myself and the women in this community and friends and neighbors is that by the time August rolls around, everyone is pretty much in need of a reset. And often we wait until September to go get it, right? Often it's like September is the time when we're really ready to get back on track, to kind of put our habits and practices back in place. And we know that maybe there's been some overindulgence during the summer, whether that is just being out of a routine, and letting go of things that you might be more regular about during the school year, or whether it's travel and the havoc that can wreak on all of your routines and rituals. We tend to get into vacation mode where we decide that it doesn't really matter. We're on vacation. And so there can be a lot of sliding, it's like a slippery slope where we just don't feel as good by the time we're getting into these later days of summer. And I thought this would be a good time to talk about one practice, one thing that you could do that I do regularly because it is such a powerful underpinning to just feeling better. So I don't have really anything written down for this one. I just want to riff a little bit on the idea of walking and why I've come to view walking as a power practice in my own life. I've shared this within our coaching community. So we were doing a walking and wellness challenge this summer with the women who are in coaching with Brilliant Balance. And today I want to share it with you because I think if you look at August and sort of the 30 days-ish that exist in this month, this is a great time to challenge yourself to adopt this power practice and see what it does for you. So again, whether you're trying to recover from some overindulgence this summer or manage the stress of the impending back to school season, which is the other thing that happens for a lot of us in August, is we just feel that on-ramp approaching, right? It's like, oh my goodness, we have to start buying the back to school supplies and getting all of those events onto our calendar. And did the kids finish their summer reading or did they do their math workbook? I think it starts to come on like an avalanche around this time of year. And so what that can do is disrupt our nervous system, right? We can start to feel more anxiety. We can feel more overwhelm. We get that breathlessness. And I want to introduce walking as a practice that can really regulate your nervous system. At least it does for me. So I'm sharing this one from personal experience. Here's the idea. I started back during COVID quarantine, like back in early 2020, walking essentially every day. I'm not going to say I never miss a day. I'm sure I miss a day, but basically it is an everyday practice. And it's because it's really all I could do. Right? All of the gyms shut down, all of the world shut down. There wasn't much we could do. And I felt so pent up in the house. I had so much excessive sort of stress and emotion and anxiety that walking felt like there was a gravitational pull toward it. Like I almost felt like I had to do it. It didn't really feel like much of a choice. And sometimes I would walk 2 or 3 times a day back in that chapter of life because I think everything in me just knew that I needed to work something out. So these days, that's more of a daily morning walk. Like I kind of get up, brush my teeth and handle like very basic morning things, take a few vitamins, and then it is out the door. And that walk for me is about 30 minutes. It could be longer if it's a day where I have a little more time or something I'm trying to think through. But I think 15 minutes even, 15 minutes where it is a ritual, something that you know you have that you can count on, can be very powerful. So in our coaching community this summer, we said minimum of 15 minutes. And you can be as creative as you want with this. That this can be done indoors. It can be done outside. Ideally, I think there's a lot of benefits to being in an outdoor environment or space while you're walking. It can be done first thing in the morning. You can do it at the end of your workday, kind of as a transition. You can do it at lunch. If it's not super hot and you're going to get super sweaty, right? You can do it in the evening, which is the time that I really like to grab one of my kids to walk with me, is when it starts to cool off at the end of the day. And you just have a little bit of extra time because the days are longer and there's more daylight. So that's another kind of window, wherever it fits in. 15 minutes, call it as a minimum, and longer if you can sustain it. But it doesn't have to be an hours and hours long practice, which is one of the things I really love about walking, is it kind of fits in anywhere. Right? It fits in whether you're at home or whether you're traveling. This summer, there were a couple of times I was walking around a parking lot at a hotel just to get outside. I did not want to be in the hotel gym. And we weren't like in an easy area. It was more like during a road trip where, you get that one night hotel room as a transition point. And it's not like we were in a beautiful resort setting, but just walking around that parking lot or up and down an access road. So simple. And you don't need anything more with you than a decent pair of shoes. I will never forget when I was growing up, we had a family friend whose grown daughter, was a flight attendant. And she used to run and walk because she said no matter where she was in the world, all she had to have with her was a decent pair of shoes. And, you could kind of plug it in anywhere. So that's really been something that over my whole adult life has served me really well. Running earlier, but when my knees were still holding up, and walking these days as just a really consistent way to regulate my nervous system, right? To stay calmer, to feel a little more in control of things, to be less foggy, to have that energy kind of moving through my body. So when I think about walking, I think there's probably a handful of benefits, some of which are obvious, some of which are maybe not so obvious. Certainly there's the calorie burn, right? We all want the opportunity to go walk off whatever extra treats we've had this summer. But there's also that movement of energy through your system. In Eastern medicine, we would call this chi, right? But having the energy in your body have a place to go so it doesn't get stagnant. Letting your muscles open up, letting your joints open up, you can do by just adjusting your stride within walking. And I find that often when I start with just the idea of a simple walk, you sort of have that instinctive desire to stretch, maybe during the walk, maybe afterward, maybe beforehand. And that stretching is so good for opening up all the tight parts of your body and just letting the energy move through. Do you ever find yourself saying, I just need a minute to breathe? While the whole idea of meditation can sound totally intimidating, I've found that stepping away from the chaos of life, even just for a few minutes, is incredibly restorative. So if you're short on time, but could use a few moments of peace right about now, listen to my 5-minute meditation for working moms. It'll help you clear your head and come back to your day feeling centered and refreshed. Head over to brilliant-balance.com/breathe. Press play and settle in for a few mini moments of peace right now. The other thing I think is probably obvious, but if you haven't been doing this, you might have forgotten, and that's that ability to sort of let off some steam. We get this pent up emotion and it doesn't have anywhere to go. And walking can be a really simple way to just release that, to just let off that steam and kind of let your body do the processing work. So often we're trying to think our way out of a problem, and reason our way through and solve it in our heads. And I think often that diffusive energy of your body moving, it almost like solves it for you. And sometimes it turns out there really isn't anything to solve. You just needed to let off some steam. So that's, I think, another piece. And then the phrase you've heard me say a couple times today is regulating your nervous system. And I just think with the level of anxiety that's in the world these days, the level of stress, the amount of information coming at us, the number of problems that we see in close in our worlds and also in the world at large, there can be this sort of latent feeling of overwhelm, a feeling like, what am I supposed to do about it? How am I supposed to handle all of these things that feel really heavy? And our nervous systems do that work for us, right? But they can get tripwired into fight or flight mode. They can sort of tip over and keep us in a pretty consistent fear cycle. And that's not the healthiest place to live, right? I am just as prone to it as you are. It can be very easy to catastrophize, to imagine all the things that could go wrong, to take a field trip out to the future in my mind and start envisioning negative outcomes. And so there's something about that drumbeat of your feet hitting the pavement or, the gravel or the grass, wherever you happen to be walking, and almost like hearing your heartbeat in your chest, listen to your breathing, that just brings you down a few notches. The thing I love about walking in particular for this practice is that you don't have to have a super strong fitness level. This isn't like you're going to come back super sweaty and, your muscles aren't going to ache and ache if you're doing this for the, sort of in the way that I'm describing it today. It has a much gentler characteristic. And that's really where its power lies, is that we're not out there kind of leaving it all in the field. We're finding something that we can sustain. And isn't that a great metaphor for what we're trying to do overall? I've talked to so many of you about finding a cadence you can sustain in life. What's the rhythm of output that makes sense for you based on where your life is right now? What can you do? And walking is something that virtually all of us can do. A couple of thoughts about how to do this, like different ways to think about walking if you're going to do it every day, right? How do you not have it get boring? There's a few different ways that I leverage that walk. One is sort of like the 2-for-1 with a conversation. So if there is somebody that I want to talk to, whether that is my husband or one of the kids or a friend or my mom, that I can do over the phone, I can pop the AirPods in and take my phone with me, and I can have a conversation during that whole walk. Again, we're not at the point of being breathless. So it lends itself really well to being able to have a conversation while you're out getting that movement in. And I love getting to walk with a friend, like in person. But if I want to talk with somebody who maybe doesn't live in the same city or just can't conveniently coordinate schedules with me, then doing that over the phone can be great. Sometimes when I'm out walking, I think about content. What do I want to be listening to? Whether that's music, like a particular playlist that sets a certain vibe. And I use those at different times to set different tones, right? I might need kind of upbeat, like get in the zone music, and I have playlists for that. I might want to listen to worship music. I might want to listen to spa music if I really need to regulate, something acoustic on like an early morning walk. But thinking about setting the tone with what is playing in your ears, right? And often, that could be a podcast. It could be if you're enrolled in some kind of course that has content that you need to get through. I was doing that this summer a little bit, was listening to content from some training that I'm doing. That's a great kind of, again, 2-for-1. If it's not requiring you to actively be like doing an assignment, you can be listening to the content itself. And there's just so many things that we can learn, right, through podcasts or those online courses. And then the other sort of mechanism or way of thinking about the walk is as a contemplative practice. And this is, this might sound really hard, but I think you might love it here and there, at least if you try it. And that is just the silent walk, leaving your phone at home or not having anything playing and really listening to the sound of your feet, hitting gravel or pavement. Like even walking on a paved road, you'd be amazed at how much you can hear if you don't have anything else competing for that attention. The birds singing, that they're out there all the time. And most of the time we don't hear them. So that little chirping, the sounds of sort of the city or the town around you coming to life in the morning, kids playing if you're out in the afternoon or the evening, conversations people are having on their front porches as you walk by. There's kind of this whole world of sound that we're really not aware of when we're overriding it with a conversation or with some kind of content. So that notion of using the walk as a contemplative practice, time to think, time to be quiet. So many people say, I can't meditate, and maybe that's you. You're like, I just can't sit still and meditate. So walking can become essentially a moving meditation. And that's the message I have for you today it's been such a powerful practice for me, done with consistency. And I've shared it with so many people in our coaching community who have then adopted it and said, my gosh, I have the longest streak that I've ever had on my Apple Watch in terms of days of movement. Or I finally found something that I can do with consistency because there's no barriers. I'm not trying to drive to the gym or align my schedule with a particular class. And I just feel better because I have that consistency and I'm moving my body every single day. So I want that for you. And I just offer that today as an idea of something that works for me that may work for you. And I would love for you to try it and let me know what you think. Let me know what benefits you notice when you do something that's this simple with consistency. That's all for today, my friends. Till next time, let's be brilliant.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.